Just rolling. Hi, Nikki. How are you? Welcome to ZenOne podcast.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Well, we were talking. You said that this is your second podcast that you're doing. How is that possible? Like, you've owned 16 locations. You should be the rock star of a dental industry that everybody should be interviewing you. And this is your second podcast ever.
Thank you. You're so funny. No, I've just kind of kept my head in the ground and just been working and really haven't had time for anything else.
To talk to. Actually, you're like, people like you are my favorite people because I feel like Instagram, LinkedIn, all these places are filled with so many advisors and not so many doers. And actually, to this point, it was so funny. This morning, I had a second to look at LinkedIn, and somebody posted that the Starbucks CEO who got fired was a McKinsey advisor. And the new guy that they brought in is the guy who helped rebuild Taco Bell, Chipotle, and now he is at Starbucks. And the point was like, even if you make a mistake, you still should remove advisors and put the doers in the seat that they actually know how to do things. How do you think you became the doer?
I don't know. I think it was just in me. Like, I can't like sit back and watch like other dentists do things wrong. Like, I just want to jump in and like help them. And so a lot of like, it goes back to the early days when I was an undergrad at UCLA, I got a job at a dental office and I learned how to do everything front desk. They had no other people in the front. So I was basically managing the practice. And so I learned everything. But then when I graduated from dental school and I was working at other practices, I saw so many things wrong. And I really tried to help. But, you know, for example, this one practice that I was working at, I was just covering someone on maternity leave. And every day I would go to the office manager and I'd say, okay, what was the production? What was the collection? And they're like, oh, we don't know. Like, we don't do that. And I'm like, but why? Like, why don't we do that? And I'm like, let me show you how we can do that. So at least we have like a gauge of how the day went. And, you know, even the owner doctor, she just wasn't really interested in learning that. And so obviously it's not enough. I mean, I was only filling in, but if they had asked me to stay longer, like it would never have worked. I can't sit back and just, you know, not be the doer. I want to go in and like fix things. And so that's why it just opens the door up for wanting to own practices and do it the way I wanted to do it.
How long was the period between you graduating from a dental school to becoming an owner?
Very good question. I graduated in 2008, and I think by 2010, I had opened my mobile dental clinic. So I would get contracted with school districts throughout California. So everything from Central California to all the way like past El Monte, very east of Los Angeles. And so I would meet with superintendents, I'd get contracts with them. And then as soon as I'd get a contract, I'd have access to the entire school district. So it was a completely different operation, but it was really fun and very rewarding because 20% of the patients that I saw daily were patients who had no insurance. So I would just do dental work for free on them. And they were probably the kids that needed it the most. You know, they would have bombed out teeth. Sometimes they'd have bombed out mouths where every tooth had decay. But then they were forced to sit in class and focus. And, you know, some would be like, oh, this person probably has ADD. And it's like, no, they are in pain. They can't focus. They're in excruciating pain. So that was very rewarding. And that was my first practice that I opened.
So 2010, you opened the mobile clinic.
Yeah, I think so.
Was it like a trailer or bus or like how?
No,
like it might sound silly.
I bought all the mobile dental equipment and I would load up my SUV. And then from there, I would go and like my assistants would meet me at the school district or the schools. And then we would set up a classroom or the nurse's office or the auditorium stage. And it takes like about 20 to 30 minutes to turn like a classroom into a dental office. And so,
wow. What were the economics like? How'd you get paid?
So the 80% of the kids that I saw had some form of insurance, usually Dent-A-Cal. And so... Yeah.
And then you you process that when you see them. Like, did you have to bring your office quote unquote office manager?
For the mobile clinic, I had created a dental software. So for the mobile clinic, when I created the software, there was nothing like it. Everyone who did mobile dentistry just sort of did paper charts or paper into computer. It wasn't really digital. So I created a software where every district, it was organized like this. So district, classroom, student. So we just, had it all organized. We would chart in there. And then from there, we would just go and bill it. And so, no, there was no office manager. It was really just me. And depending on the school district, the location, I would have one x-ray tech and one DA. So it's just like a 3-person show. And then at some point, I was able to bring on an associate or two, and they would travel and do the dentistry. And I had big goals. I was thinking this was going to go national, but at the same time that I was running this, and there's a lot of nuances with a mobile clinic with schools. You have to get a verbal recording from each parent before you go in. So if you send out a consent form, and if the parent signs the consent form, you then need to contact the parent and you need to get a recording that they are okay with you doing all of the dentistry. So there was a lot of steps before we'd make it.
Was that in your software too?
That was outside of the software. So that was outside. So that was saved outside. And then from there, we knew who we had consent for, because once you're in a school, like an underserved school, like you're so lucky if that child made it to school that day. So if you do the x-ray and you find out they need a pulp SSC, an extraction, fillings, anything, a space maintainer, like you want to have permission to just go ahead and do it right then. So that was what we did. So it was very helpful and I was very passionate about it. It was something I really wanted to continue to do. But then close to, I want to say, I'm really bad with timelines, but I want to say like 2011-ish, an opportunity came my way where my childhood dentist, who I admired for so long, had said that, you know what, there's an opportunity in Texas, but he couldn't do it on his own. And he said, look, do you want to open a practice together out there?
In Texas.
In Texas.
And you're in California.
And I'm
doing mobile dentistry.
Well, doing mobile dentistry beyond full time. It was like 6+ days a week with the phone calls, with all the management side of it. So I said, sure, let's go to Texas. Let's check out some of the properties that he had vetted. And I'm pretty decisive. I did my research. He had done his research extensively. And in one weekend, we picked the best location that we could ever have found. It was an A+ hard corner, stoplights, just a lot of traffic, and we went for it. And so we went for this one building. It was a drive-through Mexican restaurant, and he was practicing full-time in his own practice in Los Angeles, and I was full-time-ish in the mobile clinic. At this point, I already had associates doing the mobile clinic, but still operating it was tough, and I was trying to get to multiple dental units with the mobile clinic and all that. So we said yes to Texas and then started construction and went from there. And
why Texas?
I don't know how much detail you want.
Why Texas?
Well, Texas was just a growing market. So as much as California has been saturated for decades, Texas still had so much room for growth.
Wait, so I'm just trying to picture it. I'm a visual person, right? So you're in your mobile clinic somewhere down some California thing. This childhood dentist calls you and says, Nikki, like, you're a dentist now. You're doing mobile dentistry. Let's go and open a clinic in Texas. And you're like, let's go.
He said, what do you think about this? And I said, let's think about it. Let's go look at it. Let's see what it's like. And I don't know. It made sense because I understood the business operation side from the experience of when I was an undergrad. And then I had his mentorship and his support as well. So it just made sense. So yeah.
How often did you guys go to Texas, like during construction when the practice opened? Like what was like commuting back and forth?
We were going somewhat often, but the construction was lagging, definitely. So I ended up moving there the last month of construction. And so I moved there just to get it like finished, and it really helped. So that last month we got us to the finish line, and then I stayed for about 5 more months. And then in those 5 months, I was able to staff and start all the systems and, train everybody and see patients. At the same time, we had like a wait list of patients. So I had like weeks of patients like wanting to be seen, and I had to keep just postponing because of construction. So it was good. So then
Did you
once,
think about like, sorry to interrupt, did you think about like bringing over your mobile clinic and put it in front of the building in Texas? Because now you have
I
experience.
no, I mean, I did. I wanted to do mobile clinic in the schools there, but there was something where the schools in Texas weren't, there was like it was like a big obstacle into getting into the schools. So I actually did look into that, but I forget what the obstacle was, but there was some hindrance as to why you couldn't do mobile dentistry inside the classroom without like a
Wow.
van truck.
So you moved for the last month of, like, what did you do? Like just show up every day and
Yeah,
just
every day.
kicking the guys and be like, what's up?
No, just me, the contractor, and the crew. We were best friends, and I feel like I motivated them, and I was like, just getting
How
things done.
did you bring Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts? Like,
You know what? I probably did, but it was fun. We got to know each other very well, but you need to be on site. You might not have to be there for 8 hours a day, but you need to be on site to like, make sure everything's being done correctly and that they're all showing up to get it done.
in the meantime, your associates are running for 6 months your mobile clinic.
Yes. So that was happening with the mobile clinic. But then when I got really busy with Texas, I sort of had to just walk away from the mobile clinic because associates kept I mean, this is what happened. They were burning the fuses in my mobile units left and right. And as much as they had shadowed me, like I had someone shadow me for an entire week. I showed her A to Z. Like, I don't know how you could, mess this up, but she kept blowing the fuses and there wasn't enough fuses to replace. And at one point, she just burned the entire unit. And so it got really stressful between that. And then I was working in the Texas practice most days from like 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. Once we started seeing patients, it was a lot of 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. nights. And so at that point, I just couldn't manage both. And I tried to find another dentist who wanted to partner with the mobile dental clinic and take it over, but I just couldn't find
Who
someone.
wouldn't be blowing up the fuses?
Well, not just that. It was really a 6 to 7 day a week job between
Hmm.
managing the staff, getting the phone calls, meeting with the superintendents, keeping the nurses happy. Like there was a lot of moving parts. So it was very much a full-time job. You couldn't do it part-time. Even if you hired another dentist to do it, you still needed like maybe one or two people on the operations side. And it was just too new-ish to be able to, and I needed some like to find people really fast, and I couldn't find them fast enough.
Yeah. I got to ask you like an obvious question, and maybe it's going to come off the wrong way. Did you ever feel like, especially that 1 month during construction, did you ever feel like being a woman on the job site, like people weren't listening or anything like that? Just curious.
No, I don't know about not the construction side, no, but I definitely felt that with staff. I think being a woman and then being a practice owner and the boss is challenging in ways that I don't think men have to deal with necessarily. And I'll share some examples. Like some of the women I would hire, like they almost became very competitive with me. And so I'm like, look, I right now we just want to do things the right way so we can get things set up correctly because I had my partner and we had goals to open multiple practices. And so there was, there's like a sense of urgency to get things done correctly, but it's difficult for certain employees to take direction from a woman, and especially if the woman is younger than them and they think they have more experience. So it was tough, but I had to weed through a lot of staff, and not necessarily just because of that, but I think something that people overlook, because especially right now, it's a tough job market or tough to hire people, right? So back then it was a lot easier. So when I had a feeling about someone that they were not going to be on my team, that they were almost working against me or being competitive, I knew I had to like let them go. So I wouldn't hold on and pray that they were going to change their ways. I just knew like this was not going to be the right fit. So
Yeah.
I was, I never take things personally in business. I really believe that it's just business. And so I didn't think, oh, why are they treating me like this? No, I just figured this is
Yeah.
how they
But
treat anyone.
you're still 3 years out of dental school, and
Yeah.
you're already in the position where you're like firing people and doing all that. Like, did it ever become easy for you?
It was easy from doing the mobile clinic. And actually, even before the mobile clinic, let me share another story. So I was dating a guy and from dental school. He was an endo resident. And when we were dating, he said he was going to move to a different part of the city to buy an existing practice. I said, look, I'm not moving. If you plan on like marrying me, I won't move to that part of the city. So give me some time. Let me find a practice for you in this other area. And so I went looking for a practice. I was looking more for a practice within a building where the owner had like left their practice there, right? So it's already somewhat built out. And so I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. So then we together hired a broker. And within like, I want to say a week or two, the broker found a space where the dentist had flooded the unit twice. And because he flooded it twice, the second time he didn't have insurance. So he actually just walked away from his dental practice. It was a small practice, but it was exactly what he really needed. And so I said, look, you get this practice. I will get everything up and running for you. I'll do all your branding, your website, everything marketing related. And then I'll come up with the systems to operate an endo practice. Because endo
And
is different in the sense that you have yes.
and you're still in dental school.
At this point, we both had just graduated in May.
Okay, but it's
Yeah,
not in the
so
mobile
I
clinic
was
yet.
waiting for my license to come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I had like about a month or so to get my license. Actually, almost like a month and a half to get my license. So it was very quick. So we found the broker, found the spot. I said, take it and I'll help you do all of the business operations because endo is very different than GP, but at the same time, it's a lot easier. There's less codes, but you just have to have a system where you can get your referral notes like immediately over to your referrals and, that system. So I said, I'll help you with that. So I did, got that up and running. And then he just had to market himself and go out to dinners and lunches with local dentists. He was really good at that. And so did that that was really the first practice to get up and running and made that successful pretty quick. And he's an amazing endodontist. So that part was easy. Sometimes it's hard to find, the best of both worlds, someone to do your clinical and then someone to run the business side. So he had the clinical down like really well. So that wasn't an issue. And then I knew the business side and then I was able to hand off whatever I knew. Once I started working, he was able to take over from there.
Okay. So a couple of takeaways that I want to point out.
Okay.
You have there's this famous climber that did El Capitan in Alex Arnold, and he did the in Yosemite, like the famous wall that's like no protection or anything. Basically, the point is they did the DNA analysis of the guy, and he's completely lacking the gene of like fear. He doesn't have fear, right? So like, if somebody like me would look down the cliff, I'd be like, I'm not doing it. Or look up and I'm like, I'm not doing it. He doesn't have that. So that's why he's climbing free solo, no support, no nothing. And so with you, it's so interesting. You're like at the dental school and you're like, you're not afraid. Like most people would not even go to Texas, would not even look at that. You moved there, right? So like, I don't know, like it's probably going to be a separate episode we can do. Like what happened, like did you live in Motel 8 or like I'm sure there's some funny stories there too, like where you had to go through some grit. Yeah. But it's like, just to think about it. So, and you say it so easily where I think most people are sitting and thinking like, okay, so how do I do that? How do I take first steps? You don't have that, right? Like you just go do it.
That's a good question. You know what it is? I feel like I've seen enough where people act like they know what they're doing, but in reality, they don't know what they're doing. And I
Can you
think
elaborate?
so like a lot of like the people I'm coaching right now, I'm going to give one example. There's a woman I'm coaching. She's on the East Coast. And I'm doing everything remote for her because I'm on the West Coast, right? So I've gone in and done like a full diagnostic, like on her practice. And she's working 2 full days a week, like 2 long-hour days, like 12-hour days where she sees patients. She's collecting 1.8 a year, but she's like, I don't have time for anything. Like she has a lot of admin days and she has associates working for, I think it's a 6-op practice. And so she wants to do better, but the reality is like she's doing amazing as is. There's some flaws in her operations, and we're addressing everything. Like her accounts receivable is somewhat through the roof. We're going to fix that. We're collecting it. And there's other areas where she can increase her profit for sure. So once all of supply,
shameless plug.
no, she's actually someone I sent over your way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So supply, there's a lot. There's a few other areas that she can save money for sure, but without like cheaping out, like still providing really good quality care, but just, doing it in a more efficient way. But her issue is not even so much her existing practice. It was having the confidence to now go and open a second practice. So she's been, this practice, she calls it her baby for the last like 15 years. Yes.
Does she need a second practice? Like, is it part of your coaching to really sit down with people and like, I'll give you an example. Like when I was young, dumb, and naive about 10 years ago, not that I got smarter, but I think I got wiser. I had a goal of like buying Chicago Blackhawks. It was on my list. I was a dumb immigrant, right? So I'm like, this is it. I'm going to do it. I love hockey. This is my thing. Like I'm going to buy the franchise, right? And so now I look back and I'm like, well, I mean, it's possible, but like, it's not my goal. It was the ecosystem and everything else. You just eat that from people. But like, I feel like now I got to the point where my goals are my goals, right? If I think about something, if somebody comes up and says, oh, you should do this, I'm like, no, I think I know my goals by now, right? So like a lot of times what I see with dentists, they're like second office, third office, and they think they're going to get happier, but that's not the case. And so I'm curious, like, does she need a second office?
So let me explain with her. So she's bringing good income home. Okay. But the problem is she also has
on 2 days.
On 2 days. Okay. But she does have a lot of admin days. There's a lot of micromanaging that she's doing that I'm trying to help her to figure out what she can delegate. And the reason she's micromanaging is because her AR is through the roof. The staff that she has in place are not necessarily doing the best job. So she feels like she has to like hover constantly. So having said all of that, I'm fixing that. So she knows what to delegate and to whom to delegate, right? Like there's a system for that. But she needs more income. And she has squeezed everything she could out of this office in terms of it is packed. They don't have room to see more patients. Yeah, they could maximize with the existing patients and do more. And that's something else. But otherwise, to make a lot more, which is what she wants because she has her kids in private school. She has a lot of expenses. She sees the vacations I take and she's like, listen, I can't take those vacations. Like one, I feel really stressed out leaving the practice. And at the same time, like it's so expensive. So she's like, I want to do all of that. And so my solution for her is like just having the confidence that I know she can do it. She can have a second practice and that second practice can be fully associate run. And if she kind of follows the path that we're trying to do with the first office, which is delegate certain things out so that she's not micromanaging as much, then the second office will actually give her a lot of freedom. And so what a lot of practice owners lose sight of, or maybe not even like ever know, is the first office, you're so dependent on your staff that the thought of your office manager leaving you is stressing people out. I have one guy taking anxiety medication, having panic attacks in the chair, the office manager threatening him that she's going to be leaving every day. She's threatening him. And it's not just that one other practice. Like there's a lot of practices where the office manager makes the dentist so dependent on them. The dentist has no idea what the office manager is doing day to day. They just think it's like so complicated, but it's not that complicated. but they do. They think it's so complicated and that only this person can run their practice. And so one of my goals is to show them that, like, look, let's figure out what they're doing and I'll show you what it is they're doing. And once you know what they're doing, you're going to want to like modify it and make it even better. And once you do that, your numbers go up. And in her scenario, if she can kind of see the way that, like, if you're not as dependent on one person, when you have a second office, if your office manager in your first office leaves you, it's okay, because you know what? You have a TC at the second office, you have an office manager at the second office, you can sort of share staff if they're within the same area. So having multiple practices actually gives you more freedom to live, and it gives you more freedom to be less stressed out, and you're not as dependent on just a few people in your office. And I believe it. Like, even in Texas, the first office was very stressful, and it was a big office, 5,500 square feet. The building itself was 7,500 square feet, built a custom 17-foot high playground. It's a beautiful office, and it was a lot to run. And a lot of people, if they even went for that first practice, would have stopped at that first practice, because that office would be
But that's not
enough.
you.
No, that was not me. And it was not my partner either. And that was the beauty of my partner. And he was a visionary, and he always pushed me. He's like, look, now it's time. Let's get the second one. Let's go find the location. You're already there. Go look for it. See if you like these locations, and then start construction.
When he said now it's time, what was the time? Like, what indicators?
I want to say we were 5 months, like as soon as the associate came into the first practice, which was 5 months in, and we were profitable at that point too. So I want
5
to
months
say
in, you got an associate, you're back to California, you guys are sitting somewhere by Malibu Beach, and then talking business. One office is kicking butts.
No, I think I was still in Texas. The associate had yet to start. And we were like, okay, let's start the second one. Because by the time you find the location, either buy the building or sign the lease, and then start the construction, it's going to be like several months.
Just for reference, how many offices you ended up having? Like, what was the max?
16.
Okay, 16 offices. You're the first person official on this podcast that says having multiple offices is easier than having one. So I would like to spend a little bit of time on that. If somebody that has one office, 2 assistants, hygiene, maybe assisted hygiene, I don't know, front, treatment coordinator, maybe office manager, and we could talk about the office manager too, by the way. Why do you think somebody needs to think about the second office? Why is it easier?
Yeah, I'll share. So what I was saying earlier was that first office, right? So we had the first one, the big office. A lot of people would stop at that. But when I opened the second office, it was so much easier. I only had to move to Texas for 1 month, get that one up and running, and train the staff and do all the things and start seeing patients until I could find an associate. So brought that on. But what happened was, anytime, and the 2 offices, I want to say, are about 15 minutes away from each other. Okay. So anytime I was short staffed at one office, somebody called in, I didn't need to be overstaffed at any office. I could just borrow someone from this office and send them over there. And so that in itself is just so lovely, because I'm no longer stressed. Oh my God, the office manager didn't show up, our treatment coordinator didn't show up. It's like, that's okay. We can just borrow one person from here, like the number 2 from this office can go to that office or whatnot. So just that in itself, sharing resources. Now, these 2 offices happen to share marketing, but most of the other offices didn't. So we shared marketing, supplies. If I had to buy composite, I would buy composite. Anything I could buy in bulk, I would buy in bulk and then split amongst the 2, because it was really just me and the other partner. So, it was 50-50. So it didn't, make any sense to just buy separately. So supplies made sense, marketing made sense, staffing. And then, there's a few other things. I'm sure it just made more financial sense.
Right. But at what point did the banks stop loaning you the money? Like, is it offices 5, 6, or 7? Like, at what point it was a red flag for them?
Banks love loaning money. So that first practice loan that I took out was great, because the banks were like, here, you're a dentist. We have the lowest default rate out of any session, I think, right?
Yeah, like 0.87%, something like that.
Amazing. So banks love us. But the other thing is that's why your first practice is so important. Your first practice is make it or break it. So if you get sucked into that first practice, you take out this giant loan and then you can't see the light of day because you're so entrenched in just making this one practice work. Guess what? You're never going to have a second or third or fourth practice. You're going to go in 20 years down the road and you're just going to be stressing out constantly over this one practice. But if you can figure out the formula to make the first practice successful without you being the sole provider, if you love practicing dentistry, great, practice dentistry, but you don't need to practice 5 days a week. Make it a few days a week and then put your time and energy into a second practice. And then between the two, you could be full-time if you're like dying to do dentistry full-time, right? But that first practice loan that you take out, if you can prove to the bank that it's a successful practice, the numbers are great, and even if it's associate run or you're practicing or whatnot, they will continue to loan to you. And I was always I always had amazing credit score. You know, I've been working since I was 16 years old. I had a credit card since I was 16 and I always made sure it was paid. You know, I always just had really good credit. I understood that credit score game in America, how important it is. Without your credit score, you really can't grow like financial wealth unless someone hands you money. But I don't come from money. Everything was self-made. Everything was tons of loans, school loans, practice loans. My husband had to take loans. I had to take loans. Partner had to take loans. Everything was just loans. And so that's why it's so important to make sure from the moment you can get, like if someone were to watch this and they're 16, 17 years old, I recommend them having a credit card, but knowing what that means so that they can build their credit score.
Yeah.
From an early age, you know?
Yeah. So when you say you have one office, instead of stressing out in that one office, have a success formula, if you try to distill your 16 offices into success formula, what would that be?
The formula. Okay. Well, business operations. You have to know every single person's role within the office.
So job roles and responsibilities.
Yes, but not just like list it out like, oh, this is your responsibility. It's like, no, you need to know how to do that person's job A to Z. Because
as a dentist owner.
As the practice owner. And that is where most dentists fail. They do not know the ins and out of each person's role within the practice. And if you don't know how or what they're doing, then you can't come up with a better system to perfect what it is that they're doing. And if you can perfect what they do, then that's where like the growth happens, because you can sit, and if you're patient and you sit and you train them and you come up with the right systems, then that person's role is handled, and you can now move on to another person's role, maximize their time, make it super productive, like a well-oiled machine. And you just kind of do that with each role. And there's not that many roles in a dental office, right? So if you can just perfect each person's role, come up with the systems, then I think that's the magic formula. You already learned the clinical side from dental school. And if you're still not comfortable, you should just take a ton of really good CE courses, right? So you keep improving your clinical skills. And then you have to obviously learn how to speak with patients. So a lot of our associates, they would come on and it's like, you know, it started out as, I don't want to say disaster, but it had a lot of room for growth. And so a lot of it wasn't necessarily even training them clinically. It was training them how to speak with patients and how to explain certain things, but then not over explain and just share enough and all of that. So if you can figure out that clinical side where your associates understand what their goal is, it's not just to do the dentistry. They have to create a relationship with the patient, even though that they're planning on leaving in 2 years. You know, they still need a relationship with that patient. And then you understand the business side of every single person's role within the practice. And then that's the magic.
Who's leaving in 2 years?
Most associates, they like sign a contract for about 2 years.
And then they're gone.
Well, they're gone, but so another part of this partnership that really worked was if there was an associate that came on board and everything worked out well, like we loved the way they performed dentistry, their clinical skills were on point, they were great with the staff, and then we got along really well. Oftentimes that associate wanted to go open their own practice, and most often they had no idea how to do the business side. They didn't know how to find a location, to do the construction and planning and the build out. And then they didn't know from there, like, what insurances do we go and network with? How do we hire staff? How do we train them? So all of that stuff. So my partner and I, we would team up with our associates who really wanted their own practice, and we would then handle construction and the business side operations. And then the associate would come on board and do the clinical work. And as soon as they felt more ready and wanted to learn more of the business operations, then I would work with them more closely on, teaching them a few things here and there until they learned more. So every future partnership ended up just depending on who that partner, the junior partner was, and how much they wanted to take on in terms of management.
Wow. So, and if we go back to the formula, it sounds so boring.
No. Well, look, you can say, I think it's more boring to operate a practice that's running. Once it's a well-oiled machine, I find that to be utterly boring.
Right. But it's working well. It's making money. Employees are showing up. Everything is working. And that's where it's what I'm learning from a bunch of podcasts, like that the most money is made by boring businesses.
Yes.
Like, your goal is to build a boring dental practice.
Yes. No, that I think I've listened to the same podcast. Yes. So it is boring, and I get extremely bored managing a practice that's already that's running at that point. So that's when my partner recognizes that and is like, let's go, let's open another. And so I love the chaos and just not knowing if a practice is going to make it. Like walking into an empty building, right? And saying, okay, you know what? In 6 months, 5 months, we're going to have employees here, and I'm just going to try my best, and let's see if we can make this a success. And that in itself is so exciting for me. And that's what would fuel me to want to work really hard. Just not knowing if it was going to make it. And they were all successful. They were all great practices and different specialties. So some were GP, some are endo, some perio and implant centers, an oral medicine pathology practice, which is a completely different business model than any of the other offices. And then obviously the mobile dental clinic.
Yeah. Have you had a practice that failed?
No.
You didn't let them fail?
No, I mean, I closed the mobile dental clinic. So, it was great while I had it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, find someone who was as passionate to do all the things. But no, it was a success. It was making money.
That is so interesting. So with the coaching business that you do now, what is one thing that is so obvious to you that people have the most problems with?
Okay. So with the coaching business, a lot of it comes from them not knowing the business operations. They don't know what reports.
Not knowing and not wanting to know.
No, you know what it is? They're so overwhelmed. So a dentist graduates from dental school and we have so much debt, unless they were lucky enough to have someone pay for it, which
most don't.
I don't know.
Yeah, most have a bunch of debt.
Most have so much debt. So I remember that stress. I think I was one of the earliest, one of the students who got my dental license the fastest out of everybody in my class, because I felt the stress of needing to go make money. And so the day I got my license was the day I went to work at that practice that I was managing before dental school. So I told him, I was like, look, the day I got my license, I have my malpractice ready to go and I want to start working. And he said, okay, come, you just call me the day before. So I did. And I remember that stress like it was yesterday, even though that was 17 years ago, right? So I get that these dentists, when they come out of dental school, they don't have time to get trained by an office manager on what it is the office manager is doing. And oftentimes the office managers have no systems. It's all chaos the way they do things. They think they have it on locked down, but they don't. When I go in and talk to some of these office managers and I ask them what their systems are, there is no system. There's not one day of the month that they do this, this, and that. They just kind of do it when they can. And so the dentists don't have time to they don't have the time to be able to go learn this from these office managers. The office managers aren't really inclined to wanting to teach them either. So then it just becomes a lifetime career of doing the clinical aspect and not having any clue what's going on the business side. And on the business side, we pretty much handed over like a multi-million-dollar practice to someone else who is not trained, in finance, or, we don't even know where they learned what they learned. And we're just hoping for the best. So of all the clients that I'm coaching, I want to say 90% now, I can see that their main flaws is that they've handed over the finances and business operation to somebody else, and they're just hoping for the best.
But that's
So,
easy, right, Nikki? Like it's good. You show up, you park your car, and you go through the back door, and
but
you're
no, but
late to
it
the morning
gets involved.
huddle, and five
No, no,
minutes, and the office manager already started, and she says, "Hey, doc," and everybody keeps going, and you sit and you listen, and you go to your office, put up the white coat, and they tell you where to go, and you go have a lunch if it's not that crazy, and then you go home. Like, that's nice.
no. Okay, so that's what it sounds like, but that's not what it is. So what it is the doctors actually have a lot of anxiety because there are red flags that they're seeing things that are, there might be possible embezzlement, things are not making sense. They have major anxiety, but they do not know where to start. They don't know what to do. So they're sort of like frozen because they cannot accuse the office manager of anything, right? Because they're scared the office manager is going to leave them. And at the same time, they don't even have the time to start digging, and they don't
But
even have
why they're afraid that the office manager is going to leave? Like, what? Okay, so what? She leaves.
Listen, 90% of my clients, they're so worried about it. And so that's the thing. So I'm trying to actually show them that, look, what in reality is your office manager doing? If I can take a few things off of their plate and we can outsource a few of these things for you and get it done way better than the office
Like
manager is
collections.
doing. Collections. Yeah. Your accounts receivable. If we can
Yeah.
offset some of those things, then you're not going to be so worried that she may leave tomorrow. But the thing is, a lot of the office managers have things that they do a certain way, and they don't have it in a system where it's on a computer, someone else can come and follow. They almost are gatekeeping it so that you can be dependent on them. And I'm not like, I don't want to be enemies with the office manager. I am in awe of what these office managers are doing, because in reality, they came up with like whatever they thought was the right way to do it in times of stress. Like the dentist said, oh, now we're doing ortho. Now you have to do monthly payments. You have to figure out how to keep track of all of that, right? So they'll add things to the office manager's plate without really providing a system for it, or a good system for it. And then we just expect this office manager to just take on one more thing. And the reality is, like, they are struggling too. So if anything, I'm coming in to coach and help the office managers so that they can live a more stress-free life. Because if they can be shown like how to do things in a more organized fashion, more systematically, their lives will be so much better, and they won't hear it and get yelled at by a dentist when the dentist all of a sudden finds out something is going wrong. Reality is they were both culprits in the issue. And it doesn't have to stay like that forever. It can be really zen and peaceful. Like, it really can be. And it's just everyone has to know what their roles are, what's expected of them, and then also to be shown the way of how to do it. Most office managers, unfortunately, are not shown. They're told just get it done. They're just doing their best. So I
Yeah.
don't blame them either. It's just a whole system flaw. Dental school, nobody teaches you how to do anything on the business side. And I actually would love, like, so if you end up having a contact at dental schools or whatnot, like, I want to go and like speak to dental students and just give them the basics of, one, contracts that they will sign as associates, like what to look out for, but also like, if they're wanting to open a practice, like what are the things that they
Which
should
they
do
should.
to prepare? Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to a professor from an ortho school in September. And I mean, when I started in dentistry in 2009, probably up until 2019, for 10 years, I was a big proponent of dental schools teaching business. And then I changed. Because especially during COVID, it was so clear. Like, one of my really good buddies, he was dunking on an NYU school, because he was like, so many kids graduating NYU haven't even done a feeling, which I don't think it's true, but that was what he was saying. Right. But the point is, there's not enough time to teach clinical. Right. And that's where I think DSOs are, exploiting that. They're going in, they're like, hey, don't worry about it. Join my DSO. We're going to pay you this much and the minimum per day this much. And you don't have to do this and this and that. And it's easy. But now they're like, okay, they're so stressed about clinical. But like you said, as soon as they're done with the dental school, they're stressed about the loan because now all of a sudden they see it and they have to pay it. And so, and I think it's a very interesting, like a combination of they're not there yet clinically. 4 years, I don't think is enough, right? And so now you have to do either the residency, you have to go and do mission trips and whatever you can. And then, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is you open up an office and you don't do emergencies and root canals. And it's like, how do you open a practice expecting to grow without emergencies and root canals? And it's like, oh, I don't like to do that. I'm going to outsource it. Like, again, I don't blame you, but don't complain that your practice is not growing if you're a startup. That's my contrarian take. And so I don't know where I was going with it, to be honest with you. But
no, I mean, look, dental school is teaching business. The thing is, it doesn't need to be like a full MBA program. I'm pretty confident that I can teach a dentist in about 2 to 3 weeks all of the business operations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not that complicated. Like, they went to dental school, they got themselves into dental school, they graduated, they passed all their boards, and they got their license. The business operations is truly the easy part. I think the clinical side is the more difficult part. And so 2 to 3 weeks, I think they could learn. Like, and not just learn it like half-assed, like learn it really well. To the point where they're so confident that like they're going to go out and like open their own offices and do it really well.
Yeah. And I think actually a good place for that, unfortunately, I don't think ADA is doing it, but that would be so nice if ADA would have a program to go to dental schools and have somebody from the field like yourself go and do a week or two. But I think there's like a private dentist alliance that I was introduced to. I need to look it up. And if they could do it, if they could organize something like that and have like connection with all of the dental schools and just have something where a practicing dentist, a private practicing dentist can go and teach, that would be cool.
Well, I mean, it's, I don't know, it's everything. It's like, I don't know what percentage I would say clinical is important, but actually, I'll tell you, I'm coaching one practice owner. Clinically, he's amazing. I saw his work. Like, the most complicated cases. He's a wizard, okay? But he doesn't have enough patients in the practice. So if you can't learn how to do the marketing, how to do the business operations, all of that, know which insurances and when to be in network, when to go out of network, like there's an art to all of that. Like, if you can't do that and you're a wizard clinician, then it doesn't work. So it's like, what's more important? I think they're both important. Like, and then you can't be, and then I have seen people who are really good at the business operation side, and then clinically they're not so good. So, and they're still somewhat successful, but I think there's a nice like balance, like harmony with the both. That's where like the magic happens, and you can be not just successful, because for me, I didn't do all of this for money. I never did it for money, because if I was doing it for money, I would have stopped a long time ago. I find so much gratification by, like, again, building something out of nothing, watching it grow. And then, like, I love our staff. A lot of my staff are the first staff I hired in Texas. They're still with me now. So I don't know, that was 2012. So like 13, 14 years ago, they're still with me. I consider them family, and I appreciate them more than they'll ever know. And, it's that in itself. Like, had I not gone to Texas, I would never have met them. They wouldn't have enriched my life the way that they did. Right. And I hope that I enriched their life as well. So I wouldn't have had that if I remained an associate or if I had one practice. So I feel like as much as they brought so much value into my life, like, I feel like I hope that I was able to do the same for them in return. So I find that to be the most rewarding.
What if you would just give 3 things, like in your teachings and all that stuff? Like, can you package like 3 actionable things
for practice owners? Okay, to just grow an existing practice.
If somebody's listening and they're like, what she's describing, that's me.
Okay, so if there's a dentist who's listening and they are stressed out and they're not happy with their lives because of the amount of stress and burden that they're carrying with their practice. I mean, the first thing I would do is I would say, listen, you need to do a deep dive into your practice, and you need to know obviously what to look for. But the sooner you do the deep dive and see where the flaws are, the sooner you can change everything. And I'm the type of person who rather know than not know what's wrong. So if I know what's wrong, then I can go in and fix it or hire someone to fix it for me.
Give an example of deep dive. Like, okay, somebody listening says, great, deep dive. What do I do? Open dental and look at the collections and like, where do I start?
Okay, so the way it works with coaching for me, so someone will call me, we'll do like a 15-30 minute consultation. They'll tell me all of their problem points. And a lot of times they go deep into what's going on in their lives, and everything stays anonymous. I've decided that I will never disclose who my doctors and dentists are that I'm working with, just because I really want to share about them, what's going on. And obviously I don't want to make it public. So, or who they are public. So that stays private. The next step after that is I get access to their software. Once I get access to their software, I can
Practice
either go
management.
in. Yes, practice management
Okay.
software. I do a deep dive
What?
into all the
Okay.
reports. So accounts receivable, patients accounts receivable, insurance accounts receivable. But the problem is most softwares, they like Dentrix, for example. Dentrix spits out the report in Dentrix. You can export it, but it's a PDF. You have to do some things on the back end, like requires some tech savviness to then transfer it over to a spreadsheet. And then from there, you can manipulate the spreadsheet so it lists it the way I want it to be listed. So then we can really analyze it, right?
Okay. So the number one thing is when you say deep dive, like you would go and look at the account receivables.
Accounts receivable, so what codes that they're billing out the most often? Diagnostic codes. So I'm looking for room for growth when I see that some certain things are kind of like what you mentioned earlier, limited. Then beyond the diagnostic codes, I need to look at just the EOBs. So I ask them to send me like 50 to 100 pages of EOBs. And from there, I find a ton of flaws because
Like what?
no bill. Okay.
Give one example.
Okay,
So,
example. Yes,
okay.
yes. Okay, so example. I go into a practice, just pull out. I was actually at this physical practice. Pull out EOBs. I'm looking. I'm like, what is going on here? I don't understand. The amount billed and the allowed amount are matching. But then in their software, there's a UCR fee that's higher. Okay. Now, this is not happening for every single EOB. It's happening in some EOBs. So when I did the deep dive, I discovered that in this software, most softwares, it's the employer, then it's the employer, then it's the patient, the insurance, and then it's the patient, right? The way it gets attached. In the employer section, there's one box that has to be checked off. Submit UCR fees or submit standard fees.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these employers, it was checked off. Some was not checked off. So sometimes the standard fees were submitted. Sometimes the fee schedule that was attached to that employer, which a lot of times it was the wrong fee schedule, was being submitted. So one example was he did 9 extractions. It was a Delta Dental patient, PPO, but for some reason they had a Premier fee schedule attached, but he's not even in network with Premier. The Premier fee schedule was a wrong fee schedule, but it just was titled Delta Dental Premier. 9 extractions. It was billed, I want to say like at $220. It was allowed at $220, but his allowable rate was $100 more than that. So right there, $900 gone. And this was a closed EOB. Like the office manager posted the EOB and, filed it away. Like it was good. She was proud of herself. She got this paid. And the reality is she's fine. She didn't do anything wrong necessarily. She wasn't trained. She's not an EOB expert, right? Like there's an art to reading EOBs and making sure that you're maximizing. So what should have happened is the check mark should have been, done for the submit standard fees. And then every patient who's attached to that insurance and then that employer would have the right fee billed out. So this was happening across the board, across so many of their EOBs. And then the same practice is out of network with a lot of insurances. So this is somewhat of a tedious process, but that most dentist practice owners do not have time for, and nor do the staff. They don't want to do this. So what I did was I created a spreadsheet, and it's actually very doable. People should do this if they're out of network. You create a spreadsheet that lists all of the insurance codes and then all of the different insurance companies. Every time you receive an EOB, and you do this for about like 4 or 5 months back. Okay. Every time you receive a payment from it, from like, let's say United Concordia out of network 0150, you put that fee in there into this like spreadsheet, you fill up your spreadsheet, and from there you see, and every time you fill out the number, you have to write, was there room to bill higher or they paid less than what you billed?
Yeah.
So if you can bill higher, you write increase or you highlight it. And then from there, you're like, oh my God, I have to increase my fees. My standard fees need to go up. I'm billing lower than what my out of network would even allow. And then you need to go and find out how much more they would pay, because when you're out of network, they don't send you the fee schedule, right? They just are hoping that you'll underbill. And this practice, successful practice, the practice owner, he didn't call me because he was like full on drowning in workload. He actually was an employee of mine, and he's a specialist. He was working at one of my practices. He moved back to California. And so without trying to give away who he is, he said, look, I know you know what you're doing. So can you just come and like show me things? So it's not that he was like, oh my God, there's red flags and I'm not making enough money. No, but now he's making more. And he was very reluctant to increasing his fees because he had bought an existing practice. And then imagine the existing, the previous owner, how much money he lost in the lifetime of his practice. A lot. And so in this one practice, I said, look, if you just raise 5 of the codes based on what we think that we know what the insurance would now pay you because you're underbilling, you would have made $19,000 more last month.
It's
5
substantial.
codes.
Substantial.
I wasn't saying go and change all of your codes. 5 very basic diagnostic codes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So that's step 1, deep dive. I really appreciate you giving out the sauce. Because like I feel like
I'm not listening.
That's great.
I want to share. I want everyone to do better. Yes.
Okay. Step 2. So the first one was deep dive. Go into the
steps in step 1.
I know.
Okay. That was a lot. So step 1 is deep diving into the software, into the EOBs, into the systems. Step 2 is, now that you've deep dived and you've come up with what things need to be changed, is figuring out what's already working. Okay. And how can that be made better? So if you have your staff, for example, another coaching client, she wakes up and she has like 1 million text messages. And she was asking me, she's like, how do you do this? You're managing, at one point I was managing 15 offices at the same time, right? So she's like, well, when you wake up, don't you just have like 1 million texts? I'm like, no, everyone knows at what point it needs to come to me. Like there's certain things that everyone can address. So that's like a really important part of being a practice owner, knowing who can do what and making sure that they are trained and equipped with the tools to get them to make the right decisions, and then when to come to you. Otherwise, imagine 15 offices, I don't even know, hundreds of staff. I would be going crazy every day, and I wasn't. So
yeah. Okay.
So maybe learning what to delegate.
Yep.
And training. And then
Number 3
is honestly having the confidence when you do step 1 and step 2 really well. And obviously the clinical is itself, you got to master the clinical side, know how to do an array of procedures and all of that. But okay. And how to speak to patients, streamlining, all of that. But the third step is, once you have all of step 1, step 2, and the clinical side down, and you've maximized your first practice, my recommendation is, you can only practice dentistry for so long. And this is also for all the cosmetic people out there, right? I see it. They're getting burnt out. They're marketing themselves heavily, right? So it's them and their 2 hands bringing in a lot of production. But at some point they get burnt out with the social media aspect, with just doing all of the dentistry, they're high maintenance patients. It's having a plan B that should be working simultaneously while you have your cosmetic practice. I think all of those cosmetic people should have 1 or 2 other practices where they have associates there. They could be using their name as their brand, but then be charging less at those other practices. And it doesn't have to be cosmetic. It can just be a bread and butter
Yeah.
practice,
Yeah.
you know? So that would be it, to know when to expand.
Fantastic. This
Yeah.
is great. I think there's a
No,
lot of
Tiger, you're
takeaways.
just nice.
This is
Thank
awesome. Okay, so I don't want to ask you like, can you share any parting wisdom? Because this was great. Like you packed so many things in
I
these
do. And
last
I
three
want to
things.
share something, and
Yeah.
it's about ZenOne. Okay. First of all, I didn't know what this podcast was going to be about. I thought you were going to talk about ZenOne and ask me
No.
questions. So since you haven't asked me at all about ZenOne, I want to like talk about it because it really did change a lot for me. So again, I'm really bad with timelines. But let's say for about 10 plus years, I would dedicate one full day a month to ordering supplies for the practices. So I had, like one full day, which is a lot, like literally 8 to 5. So I'd have back office managers. Each practice had a spreadsheet. Back office managers, very organized. Each practice had different set of supplies that they would order, and some were obviously the same. But I always like to, get what my associates wanted as well. So if they had special requests, I would always order for them. So we'd have a list of all the items, what we ordered the previous month, what the current in stock like inventory is, and what they're requesting, and then what I ended up ordering. Okay. So I would do that, but then I would price shop for each of the codes or each of the items, right? So
By
then I would
yourself.
go and it'd be like Henry Schein, Patterson, Pure Life, Sky, whoever, right? Like go through and figure out, because even though I had contracts with Patterson and Schein, their prices would fluctuate every single month. Like, you think it's the same, but it's actually not the same. And a lot of practices only order from one big supplier, and they think the price is this price on this paper that they have, but it's actually not. It changes in the software. So then I came across supply procurement companies, right? And one of them was ZenOne. So I also dedicated one day a week throughout when I have all these practices. I would dedicate one full day a week of just vetting out new technology. So I would do
That's amazing.
demos and I would just do all the things between demoing and then onboarding and everything. So one was supply procurement. So I interviewed all the supply procurement companies out there. And yours was my favorite, not just because you were like so helpful in showing and demoing, but your software was legitimately like the easiest to use, because I'm thinking I need something where my back office manager loves it and wants to use it versus keeps calling me and asking me, how do I do this? And I found yours to be the easiest, yet the most beneficial. So ZenOne is the Amazon of dental supplies. And so what you do is you log in, you create an account, which you and your team like made happen so seamlessly. And you link your Patterson account, you link your Henry Schein or Darby, whoever the big companies are. But then now you also have access to all the smaller suppliers. And these smaller suppliers, you can just order and have your credit card inside your ZenOne software and place one order for everything, even though it's going to different suppliers. And then everything gets shipped directly to your practice. And the beauty of this is that you can price shop on one screen. That was just a new concept in itself. So if you're buying gauze, you just type in 2x2 gauze, and then all of a sudden you see gauze from every different supplier, and you can choose which one you want to purchase from. And then when you go and you create your cart, this is what I did for the first few months. I had the back office managers do inventory, because you can track your inventory through ZenOne as well, which is really can save you a lot of money just knowing what you have. So my staff the back office manager would go in and enter the items that they needed, put it into the cart. Once it's in the cart, I was able to click that one button where it says like save more with ZenOne. So even though the back office manager thought they picked the best priced, most economical item, they may have missed it. So with that one click, it helps you choose other suppliers to pick it from. So then I would make the quick modifications. I would show them how I did that and then place the order. After about, I want to say not even 2 months, they got it themselves. And so then they have a budget within each practice of how much they can spend based on our numbers from like the prior months. And so from there, they create their own shopping cart and they place the order. It saved one solid day. And by the way, another thing I try to show the practice owners is do not order supplies like 2-3 times a month. It's once a month. like if you train your staff to do it once a month, like it can happen. It's like you shouldn't have to be constantly ordering. So that was it. So now we order, you know, the once a month without me having to put my hands into it. I have like a free day a month. So thanks.
Thank you. I'm so happy that we can record a podcast on that free day instead of you doing orders.
Yes. No, if you do things right, you should have a lot of free days.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I really appreciate you. That was amazing. You shared a lot of stuff. I know you're slowly transitioning to coaching because obviously you have a little bit of free time and you want to help people. I truly think that people should take you more seriously because you've done the work. And my goal during this podcast was to try to reveal to people that you actually did the work. Right. So like I said before, not everyone, like not even 98% of people will go to Texas and live in Texas for 6 months. Right. Like in 1 month during construction, like it just doesn't happen. Right. And so you've done things that you've done that give you the credibility to go and teach people and try to help them with the practice. And I think people should do that. And I think the second part too, there are a lot of coaches. I don't have anything against them. And a lot of consultants, but very few that actually worked in the office. And we started the podcast with that, and we're probably going to finish with that. Listening to someone who's been in your shoes versus someone who's studied what it's like to be in your shoes is a big, big difference. And so I think it's just worth having you on somebody's side when they're running a practice.
Yeah, I mean, with dentistry, we feel alone, right? Like even though I had partners, I felt alone because all of our roles were very different. And so it's such an isolating, you know, it could be a really sad career. So it's to make it less sad, it's actually nice to talk to others about your issues. Like, you know, so one last thing, I was at a conference last night. I was speaking to a woman who I just met and she was sharing all the struggles. And I felt for her and I could see she's been out for like, I think like 16 years or so. And she's like, I don't understand what's happening. And I'm like, you know, honestly, you're not alone. And sometimes just knowing that you're not alone makes it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough, but it's nice to share and to know that there is a way to make things better.
Yep. Nikki, thank you so much. I'll link up your contact information. I'll add it to the notes and hopefully we'll do take 2 at some point in the future.
Okay. Thanks, Tiger.
Thank you.
Thank you.